Welcome.
Okay, ready. I actually wrote a speech, but I'm not going to read it because I haven't changed my speech, but I just had coffee with Nathan Edelson before this, and we talked about sort of things on zoning policy and downtown Eastside, and he actually said that he really enjoyed my speech last time because it was attempting to build bridges instead of being a little too antagonistic. My original speech was a little antagonistic, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've had conversations with a lot of people since the first speech, and what I find really interesting is that there are some odd allies in the room that you wouldn't usually see sitting at the table. But they're all calling for very similar things. So, you know, the obvious one is CCAP, which I support. You even have Michael Geller, which is, you know, someone who I definitely don't agree with often, but he's talked about how come you can find money for a stadium roof and not social housing. There are issues with political will here. I mean, last time I was here, Councillor Reimer talked about how she read the letter, and I think everyone talked about actually how they read Nathan's letter, and they said that he really supported the plan, and he does, but with provisions. He supported it as a general vision. He didn't support some very specific things, which things like the zoning. He told me just right now that he doesn't think a third of the 60% is good enough to end homelessness. Like a third of that 60% should be inclusive of welfare rates. And that's what I was going to say already, but I mean, I think it was like a little misleading to say that he did support it as a whole 100% when, I mean, I sat down with him and I talked to him about the details, and he supports it as a vision, and I also support the plan as a vision and in terms of the hard work that's been going on in it, but there's a bit of a front to the plan. And I mean, the vocabulary sounds very good around social mix, and it brings out all of these ideologies of what we want to see in a revitalized neighborhood, but it doesn't address the reality, and I think that's what everybody here and last time we're speaking to, they had very experiential knowledge of what was happening on the ground and how the language in the plan does not address what's going to happen to them. And that experiential knowledge should not be ignored. And I'm not saying that you are ignoring it, but when you don't live with the reality of poverty, it's something you can have the luxury of ignoring and going back home and forgetting. And I just hope you don't forget that. So my general stance on the plan is 60-40. The 60% should be inclusive of all of welfare rates. Micro suites, I mean, I'm not opposed to density. I think I'm pro-density. I'm pro-residentialization. But, I mean, at the sizes that are being proposed, it would make it sort of unlivable. And the problem is that, I mean, some of the densest neighborhoods are in kind of multifamily home spaces where people, you know, voluntarily crowd actually themselves, and they make it work because it's a comfortable space. The general size, it makes it feel larger for them. And micro suites, you know, smaller suites, we do have to live with, you know, constraints on size, but there's a reality that it's actually quite restrictive. And incentives for landlords to renovate is good, but not without protection for renovictions. I mean, renovictions shouldn't even be a word, like the vocab, but what does it mean that it is a word? and it's being used very liberally here in this conversation. That's really a problem. So, I mean, if you insist on the ideology of social mix, then you have to enforce a plan that respects dignity for everyone. And that's about it. Also, one more thing. I know that I've given a bit of, flack to council and the mayor for the 25K lunch recently. And that is meant to be a political opportunity to talk about what kind of money can be mobilized. It's, for me, it's not a personal insult on the mayor or vision. It really isn't. But this is a political opportunity to open a conversation about what is possible. And that's what it is.
Okay, you have questions from Councillor Reimer first.